the genetics that we know, this MTHFR cluster, has one side is we're poor methylator. The other side, we're an awesome achiever. We are usually smart, talented, and super committed to great outcomes. Hi, everyone. This is Martin Pytela for Life Enthusiast podcast. And with me today, a compatriot, Julie Michelson. And she is a warrior of the style that I am. And she shares a whole bunch of my genetics, and we get on just famously. And the main reason I want to talk about it is this. The genetics that we know, this MTHFR cluster, has one side is we're poor methylator. The other side, we're an awesome achiever. We are usually smart, talented, and super committed to great outcomes. Well, Julie is one of us. Welcome.
Thank you, Martin. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. Julie, I think it would be smart if I would let you explain just how crazy it can get before we learn what to do.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I think I have a really good example from my personal experience. I was a newly single mom of 3 little ones under the age of 5 when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I was in my early 30s, and totally, didn't know anybody with RA, didn't have autoimmunity that we knew of in the family. Really a big surprise. And I was told by my doctors that I would decline, period. They would give me medications to try to slow the process and keep me as comfortable as they could, as long as they could. So, shocker, I believed them. What did I do? I declined for 11 years. At the end of that 11 years, I was on 10 prescriptions, including, painkiller, you name it. I was taking meds for my meds, right? Like half of what I was on was for side effects of the other medications.
Yeah, here's an interesting point I would like to dwell on.
Yeah.
Right? The mainstream medicine tries to treat symptoms rather than causes. And when you treat a symptom, well, autoimmune diseases, all of them have a lot of symptoms.
Sure.
And so you will end up with one pill for this, one pill for that, one pill for this, and so on. And then, as you just said a moment ago, and you're stacking pills to deal with symptoms of symptoms.
Yeah, not the same stack I take today, by the way. Very different nutraceutical stack versus what I was on at the time. And unfortunately, I had quit graduate school. I had to eventually quit work and just rest while my kids were at school so I could take care of them, when they were home. It was not ideal. And in my head, at the point when I was in my mid 40s, my dad had passed in his sleep at the age of 54 and seemed healthy until then. And I was thinking, like, there's no way I'm going to live to see 50 at this point. And when I found out my kids shared that fear, I made the promise to my daughter, who's my youngest specifically, that I would try everything. And something in that moment shifted, because I thought I was trying everything, because I tried every drug, every prescription they gave me. At that point, I had already gone gluten-free because my son was diagnosed with celiac, and I had accumulated, as you just mentioned, other diagnoses and other, fibromyalgia being one of them. And so, but there's something in that moment of the try everything in my head was like, even the stuff that I've been told wouldn't work, or, that sounded crazy, and I actually didn't do anything that now sounds crazy, like changing diet. That sounded crazy at the time.
It's interesting, right? Like you're told ahead, they try to medicate you for depression or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, that was, early on when they didn't know. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves, is when they don't know how to help, or they don't understand my two pet peeves are, of course you're tired, you're a mom. When you talk to a doctor about
Yeah.
fatigue, like,
Yeah, they don't understand the level of fatigue that
yeah,
you're experiencing.
yeah,
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 they are assuming that you're tired the way you'd be tired if you walked a 9 flight of stairs up and down.
right,
But no,
right.
you're tired like you did 900 of them, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
So yes, that and then the offer of the antidepressant when they
yeah.
just don't know what else to do for you. Those are my two big pet peeves. Well, now my new one is people are still told when they're diagnosed, with not just autoimmunity, but any chronic illness that it's a permanent situation. And that's not true. Here I am, 55, still alive, off of all of those medications, completely symptom free. And life is bigger than it's ever been. And I feel better than I did in my 30s and 40s. So
Yeah,
they're wrong.
yeah.
And it's just that they don't know. And I say this all the time. Like my fiance is a physician. Nobody goes into medicine to hurt people. It's just that Western medicine is acute care medicine.
Right.
That's where I'm going if I need emergency surgery,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, well put. They know what to do with an injury
Yeah,
because it was developed during the war times, right? Like they're
yeah,
awesome at saving your life, but they're
yeah.
horrible at maintaining it.
No, they don't. There is no preventative medicine in classical Western medicine.
I, I think I think my problem with them is that they have the hubris to want to own the whole thing. Like
Yeah,
if they would just stay in their lane, which they are
right,
very good at, life
right.
is fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually a client a few weeks ago had said their primary care said, "I don't know how to help you with this. You need a functional medicine doctor." And I was like, "I want the name of that primary care because that's a great doctor."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Somebody
really?
with a bit of humility,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
I know my limitations. Takes a
yeah.
lot of knocks. So I think they graduate from the school believing that they're close to God.
Some do,
Well,
for
it's the
sure.
method by which they're trained to tell them that you can fix anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
So, like, yeah, except then they tell people you can't heal chronic stuff, which is wrong.
it is wrong.
So, yeah.
Well, so how did you do it?
I did
Three
it.
kids? Oh my God.
I started listening to podcasts, believe it or not. I mean, I think I was already listening to podcasts, but I started experimenting and trying things, reading books. My brain fog was so bad at the time that, I would read a book and like one little thing would stick. And I started with food because in that journey over those 11 years, that changed to gluten-free, you'll be so shocked to hear, not at all, was the one thing, not the meds, not that I could feel a little bit of improvement in my pain.
Hmm.
And so it was like, okay, that worked. What else
Hmm.
can I do with food? And I didn't change anything that I haven't heard you talk about on the podcast either. Again, big shock. So rheumatoid arthritis. I know you talk about, the diagnosis is tied to the location in the body.
Yep.
So this was, autoimmune expression in my joints. Really not a big surprise to hear that nightshades were an issue for me. Huge change in that. I grew up, my family was in the dairy business. Cow dairy, not my friend.
Nope.
And so I I joke I had the throw spaghetti at the wall approach to healing. I didn't know, I wasn't a health coach. I didn't know what I was doing. I got really lucky. I was supposed to be doing this because with food and dedicated meditation practice, I started to improve in a way that was beyond remarkable. And the reason I say, there was a purpose is because knowing what I know now, if you had looked at my toxin panel, you'd have been shocked that I healed it all from just addressing those two lifestyle areas because I had mercury toxicity, lead toxicity, multiple mycotoxin challenges. My environmental toxins are through the roof. Back to that methylating challenge, right? My
Yeah.
glyphosate is still high. And I've been eating organic ever since it was a thing. I grow, my own food. I live in Colorado, so spring and summer, but
Yeah.
I on paper shouldn't have been able to heal just with food and stress management,
Yes.
but it really got the ball
And here we
rolling.
are. It's enough.
Yeah,
It's enough to
move
go.
the needle.
There's this little hill, right? And
Yeah,
you need to crest the top,
yeah,
get to the other side of it.
yeah.
And
And
you did.
and
It's awesome, right? Like
it
now
is.
you're looking back at it thinking, holy smokes, that was a
Oh,
weird time.
yeah. Like completely unnecessary.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
Sadly, my rheumatologist, who was a friend, really bright woman, passed away from complications of autoimmunity. And I think like totally unnecessary
yeah. And of course, she lived believing her education
in the
because after
medication.
all, when you go there, they tell you we know everything there's to know, and
Yeah.
here it is.
Yep.
And anyway, and that's
Yeah.
that's the ones that come back saying, well, steroids and painkillers.
Yeah.
Mm, yep,
Been there, done that.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so here we are. You have gained a ton of wisdom by overcoming your own trouble. And
and yeah, and helping, and seeing it's not me. I'm not special. This is how we're designed to heal. I mean, I am special, of course,
yes, yeah, yeah.
but humans, we are designed to heal. That is how our bodies are designed. And so I see it, time and time and time again.
Right. So now you're in the business, right?
Yes. Drank the
Well,
Kool-Aid, right?
talk
The
about,
healthy Kool-Aid.
talk about this. You undrank the Kool-Aid.
You're right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, well, how do you do it? What do you do with people? And who are the people that you like to hear from the most?
It's such a mix, right? Because I get really excited when somebody is at that beginning of that hill and they know something's wrong, they're not diagnosed, and they, are not going to go there. Those are really exciting people
Right,
to empower. But then I love the people that have had decades, like me, decades of decline and a list of diagnoses and symptoms because I love giving them life back, helping them get life back, right? Like
right.
it's all about empowering. And that is why, it's why I have a podcast. It's why we're talking on yours, is changing the conversation so that even if somebody's told by their doctor they can't heal, they've heard it enough from you, from me, from whoever they're listening to think that might not be true.
Well, I have had so many people throw back at me after I open with this message. You're a charlatan and you want to take advantage of me,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Like it bothers me a bit, not for me, I couldn't care less, but it
Yeah.
bothers
It was
me for
sad for
them.
them.
It bothers
Yeah.
me for them because I'm thinking you are just so blinded by your indoctrination.
Yeah. But they're not ready. They're not ready.
Not ready.
I was that. I had heard, oh, so and so has RA and did this thing and got better. And in my head, 20 years ago, I was thinking, either they didn't have RA or they weren't, you know what I mean? Like you make,
Yeah. Explain it away with logic.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. And so you ask, like, how do I help people?
Mhm.
That's where we start is mindset.
Yeah.
Because if you're in that mindset of, identifying with whatever your diagnosis is or your symptoms are, and you really believe that your outcome is to decline, you're not going to heal that way, even if you make the other lifestyle changes. So I start there. I joke. I didn't used to start there. I'm a better coach now. Years of experience
Yeah.
does pay off.
Yeah, it's amazing how good you get when you do 10,000 hours of something.
Right. Yeah. And so again, back to that whole body part diagnosis pill model.
Yeah.
You don't need a diagnosis, we know whether we choose to listen to our intuition or not, like when something's off.
Yeah. Well, the
So
simple difference is when you focus on the organ, then you
It's
have a symptom. When
yeah,
you when you focus on the terrain, then you
yeah,
have a method. So if you have one fish or three fish out of the 20 in your aquarium that are sick, are you
right,
going to be treating the individual fish or are you going to treat the aquarium,
right.
the whole water?
Yeah. Well, it's funny as a mom, my kids are adults now, but um, every probably parent, not just mother, can relate to that question, why, right? The
Mhm.
kids ask all the time
Yeah,
when they're little. We used to joke about it. I would be like, "Oh, your favorite letter." That's the missing question, right? Is why? Why do your joints hurt? Why are you fatigued?
yeah,
Why fill in the blank, however that inflammation is expressing in your body.
right.
So,
Yeah, to flip it, to make it really simple,
yeah,
your arthritic or your joint pain is not caused by a deficiency in the name the pill.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So here they are. They call you up. I guess there's a website, right?
My website, yeah, the easiest place to find me is jm.coach because my last name's
That's
spelled funny.
awesome.
And it'll
JM
take you to the
coach.
website or the podcast or wherever you want to
Wow.
go. Speaking of the podcast, your episode dropped this week, so I'm very excited.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's hope people learn something. So what are we going to teach these life enthusiast people about? What can we add to the pile that they haven't heard before?
Oh boy. I don't know if it's a what they haven't heard before because I know
Well, in
um
your words, it's going to be
you speak truth a lot. So
all right.
I think it's more of that underscore. I want to maybe highlight, this is old news for you, but maybe somebody like you said, needs to hear it in my words. I talked about food, and I've heard you mention this before on the podcast as well. We're complex human beings. And so even in my own story, I talked about food and toxins. We didn't talk about sleep and movement and all of the components that help keep us healthy. But what we often don't realize is how intertwined they are.
Mhm.
And so when I say food, I'm thinking of real whole food.
Yeah, grandma
Um,
cooking from 150 years ago.
yeah, yeah. And so you can't, if you're eating gluten grown in the wheat grown in the United States, and then it's ultra processed and packaged and mixed with all kinds of chemicals and things, um, you can't separate, that's a toxin,
Yeah.
right? So there's no, I think maybe that's where am I going with this? That's the big takeaway is we have to change that mindset of one thing is going to fix this problem because one thing didn't cause the problem.
Yeah, I
You
have
know,
people ask me a question. What's the most important thing I need to do?
yeah,
And I'm saying to them, well, which is the most important wheel on your car?
right, right, yeah,
I tell them toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. You have
yeah,
to resolve it, all of it.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and you look at something like autoimmunity,
Mhm.
especially and trauma. I didn't mention in my journey, and of course, like every human, I have experienced plenty and needed to do work on that. Not necessarily in a way that there are so many wonderful methods to work on trauma that you don't have to relive the trauma to move the needle necessarily.
What worked for
Um,
you?
for me, again, back to it was throwing spaghetti at the wall. So I mean, you name it, I've probably tried it.
Okay. All right. Well, that was
Everything moves the needle a little bit, it's
curious
just like
thing.
it's
Yeah,
not one thing.
Julie, that was totally my method. I tried so many things.
Yeah.
Not even funny.
And I'm still, that experimental mindset is what helped me heal,
Mhm.
right? So why wouldn't I keep it? I still try, I learn about a new thing and I try it if it's something health promoting. So maybe not I'm discerning. And I like science. I'm very science driven, but very open-minded at the same time. It's the same with, I'm sure people ask you this all the time. What's one supplement everybody should take?
Yeah, right.
Well, I don't know. Can I see their blood work? Like,
Yeah.
you know, or like okay, maybe if I know their genetics,
Yeah.
fine. I could probably make some educated guesses.
Yeah. Yeah. With the metabolic typing that we do it's
Yeah,
kind of easier.
it's pretty
You know
clear.
the type, you know which pile they're on. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. See, but if I had found you, 10 years ago, how much faster would my
Yeah,
healing
you
have
would have
been?
made faster progress. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so we have to get over this, and it's the same with food. Well, what should I eat? Tell me what you eat. You talk about this all the time, right? We shouldn't all eat the same thing,
No.
but it should be whole, real
Mhm.
food.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell them you cannot touch refined flour, refined sugar,
Yeah.
refined salt, refined plant oils, and pasteurized dairy. Forget it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember with the family being in the dairy business, I remember when ultra pasteurized
came on.
started to hit the market. And I remember my dad saying, this is terrible.
This is wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, milk's supposed to last one day, not 3 months.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, think about this is not where I thought this conversation would go, but think about, breast milk. Would you, you know, pump a bottle of breast milk and leave it in the refrigerator for a month and then feed it to your baby?
right.
No.
Or would you boil it first?
Right. Right. And kill all of the goodness. It
Yeah,
just
kill
doesn't,
all
it
the.
doesn't make
Well, the
sense.
problem, of course, is that our babies are not cows, so feeding them cow milk is somewhat stretching it.
We are the only animal that drinks another animal's milk. And again, sorry, Dad, family was in the dairy business. There is a way, for I understand like how it happened, why, we drink milk and I'm not, everybody thinks that I was born a health coach, right? And I always say I love cheese. Like I can tolerate some goat and sheep cheese just fine.
Yeah, same here.
But yeah,
And I
so
do use it. I do eat it. It's part of my diet.
it's
Thank you very much.
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I whole, real, but understanding that what you identify as food, if it's not real food, your body does not identify it as food, and it's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess your coaching is mostly conversational then, right?
Yes, mostly conversational. So I work remotely. I do work in clinic with local folks in Colorado, which is fun too, but it's fun to be able to just
Go face
help
to face.
people. Yeah. Well, but to talk to people all over.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
right on. Yeah, on your website you put in autoimmunity for high achievers.
Yes.
Explain to me what you go out.
Because there is no magic pill. And so the reason my target client is a high achiever is two things. One is I like a challenge. And so that developed out of a client I had early on who is a serial entrepreneur. He has multiple businesses. He travels all the time. Because people think, well, if I'm gonna do the lifestyle things, then that means I can never eat out and I have to stay, I have to stay home all the time. And so I like the challenge of helping people with different lifestyles
Yes.
achieve wellness, figure out how to do it that in a way that works for them. So with the high achieving clientele, I tend to break a lot of the rules that they taught me in coaching school as far as like, I have been known to find a chef for someone
Mhm.
to, so that I can get the good food on their table.
Right.
And that's how it's going to happen. I have clients where I have learned, and it's just like the rest of life, trial and error. This kind of developed out of like, oh, some of these people, if I want them to show up on their coaching call, I actually need to book the call with their assistant, not them, because
Right. Yeah.
they don't run their schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's a different, it's just a higher level
Yeah.
of, but
Well,
they're used to work, their work, it does take work to get well.
yeah. Yeah, on Life Enthusiast, we have ended up mostly with people who are less affluent than that. And so most of them are not willing to just say, okay, I'm starting with my $6,000 fee intake. Let's do
No.
a test, right?
And
So
that's not necessary
no, it's not.
either,
I
and that,
remember talking, Julie, I remember talking to a woman who spent $30,000 on functional medicine stuff, was no further ahead on what I was able to tell her after 5 minutes of listening to her.
yeah, no, and that's frustrating and that's really, really sad. And that's another challenge these days as somebody who has a functional medicine clinic.
Right.
Functional medicine has become, this catch-all umbrella phase. I had a client that I use extensive lab work to help people when possible, to help because that costs money, but to help people speed up their process. And I have a client who doesn't live locally, has a functional medicine doc, labs, all the things, and I didn't I don't ever do that anymore. I did her a disservice. I did not ask her for the labs because in my mind, functional medicine panel means an in-depth panel. They hadn't checked omegas. It was not what I consider functional medicine, but it was marketed as such. And
Yeah.
so,
It's by the
um,
numbers and big markup.
it is. And I'm glad you brought that up. You don't need, people say this all the time, and I'm sure you hear it with food. Oh, but it's so expensive to get quality ingredients
Hmm.
and I hear this even with my employees at the clinic of,
Right.
they want a bigger paycheck because, it's hard to live.
It's
And
expensive to buy it. Yeah.
I watch them get expensive coffees for each other. I'm like, if you took your, you know,
Yeah.
high fructose corn syrup out of plastic beverage, I don't even want to call it a drink. It's
Yeah, yeah.
the, and they're doing it every day. And it's like, wait,
There's
you
a really
know,
interesting difference between Europe and America. In
yes.
Europe, healthcare is about a third of the cost and food is about twice as expensive.
Yeah,
And it's interesting that it's not relatively really expensive. It's just relatively expensive to their incomes.
right,
But they're not worried or not afraid to pay for quality
right.
and insist on it, right? Like in a restaurant, it's
Yeah,
cooked from scratch, from local food. It is
right.
not the chain method just
Yeah.
hasn't caught on too well.
Well, and even, I mean, this has been a hot topic in this country lately. I think coming to light or a little more awareness anyway for a lot of people who don't travel internationally to, you take these chains or these big companies
Mhm.
that are selling food internationally, they can't, they're not allowed to put the same ingredients in their
Right.
food.
Oh yeah,
And
I read
so,
this recent story that Robert Kennedy got attacked by New York Times because he said that the Canadian Fruit Loops had fewer ingredients. And they said they don't have fewer ingredients, they have different ingredients. They're trying to catch him on the logistics.
like a little, yeah, semantics.
Right.
And it's the same with like fast food restaurants. And I know that always makes me sad traveling internationally when I see American chains
Yes.
because you go to a place that cooks real food locally sourced, and then, and people are going to an American fast food chain. I'm like, oh, I know, but we have to make that choice
Yep.
of, okay, the only way to change the broken food system in this country is with our dollars.
Yeah, that's it. You vote with every purchase. You vote
Yeah,
for this thing to be made again.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the understanding that all of those ultra processed foods are intentionally designed to be addictive and to get you to eat more of them. Like it's, if people really understood the mind games going on
Yeah.
behind what they think of as food.
Yeah.
So I think that myth of, yes, grass-fed beef may cost if you don't live where I do and can't stock up on a quarter cow or something like that, but so it may cost pound for pound a little bit more, but your health.
You don't have to pay for the health expense later.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we should have some kind of a health insurance exemption for people who have woken up. That may be
I,
coming, I hope. But
yeah, I
well,
love it. I
yeah,
think, yeah, I think that it is interesting, the two broken systems, the
yeah,
healthcare and food, and it's all interconnected. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
hopefully as
Yeah,
one changes,
the
the
food
other
industry
will.
breaks you, and the health
Yeah,
industry tries to pretend to treat the problem, right?
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It is, let's create this issue and then we can give you some medication for it.
Oh, all right. Okay, so
Yeah.
jm.coach, people go there and get a really personalized, high attention treatment.
Yeah,
And
and there's even I have, a free little mini email course on the website that can help you identify,
Mhm.
because nobody can make all the change at once, right? We just need to get the needle to move
Mhm.
and get the wins, and it is important for some of us, for everybody to know where to start so that when they make a change, they feel it. And so the mini course will run you through the pillars and
Mhm.
help you identify, like, okay, this is really
Yeah,
where I should start.
yeah, move the
Um,
big boulders early.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's all about just getting that motivation and propelling yourself forward, one doable change at a time.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So here you have it. A woman in her 30s heading for an insane asylum in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, literally that was right. The timing of my let me look elsewhere. They were trying to convince me to get a handicap placard for my car, and I just didn't
Yeah.
want to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there are definitely two roads. Roads. The road less taken is the one that you and I took, and
Yeah,
it says, yeah, it's harder, but boy, the outcome's way
the
better.
payoff is really amazing.
Yeah,
It is.
right.
So I appreciate all of the information you put out,
Well,
because it's all got value. It's just a matter of what somebody needs to hear in that moment, right?
well, thank you so much for the validation. That's yeah, yeah. I'm sure we could just talk for a long time, telling each other how we overcame.
Sure,
That
sure.
that
But
is the choice. Yep.
I mean, your story, your personal journey is so different from mine,
Yes.
right? As far as
The
experience,
specifics. Yeah.
but not at the same time. The specifics are
Yeah.
so different, but
Yeah.
when it comes down to, okay, how do we stay well now? Very similar.
Yes. And how did
Yeah.
we get right? Also similar, which is
Yes.
this. Do not try to deal with your symptoms. You
Yeah.
must deal with the causes. And the
Yeah. And
causes are in the inputs.
Yes. And one little other thing I want to say about the symptoms that we forget and doctors don't typically tell us, it's your body giving you information. And the more, if you ignore, it gets louder. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if we had took that approach early on of like, again, why or what is my body trying to tell me? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Oprah Winfrey, of all people, saying, well, first you get the nudge, then you get the bump, then you get the kick, then you hit the wall, and then the
Yep.
wall comes down all over you. Now,
Yeah.
at which point do you want to get the message?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the beautiful thing is even if the wall has come down all over you, you can still heal.
Yes.
It's just faster and easier if you just listen to that nudge.
Okay, so wherever you are, the listener, hopefully you are ready to heed the message. The message
Yes.
is loud and clear.
Yes.
You need a coach because learning it on your own is slow. With a coach, it's quick.
It is. I always say, you know, if knowledge was the answer, then there wouldn't be coaches, right?
Right.
We help people, I say with the how. How do you do it? Right?
Yeah,
You know,
the shortcuts.
it's a shortcut and a partner.
Yes, accountability counts for something.
Yes.
We humans are designed to be team creatures. We are
Yep.
designed to be interacting.
Yeah.
Yeah. A
Yeah.
yogi.
And when you're not well, you're typically isolating and isolated. So
Mm,
yeah. And that's a whole nother, the social component of wellness is important as well.
right on.
Yeah.
Well, there we have it. Julie Michelson, jm.coach.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure. This is Martin Pytela, life-enthusiast.com. Find us online. Thank you.
Hey.